Some vegetables and herbs actually grow better crammed into a pot on your patio than they ever would if planted in the ground. Most garden centers will never lead with that, because a raised bed full of struggling tomatoes sells a lot more soil amendments than a happy plant in a $5 pot. In this video, I'll show you 13 vegetables and herbs that thrive in containers more than garden soil. Plants that actually prefer the drainage, the warmth, and the control a pot gives them. You'll get a full harvest without tilling a single square foot of lawn, and without the slug war that comes with planting straight into the ground. Stay until the end. The last plant is a hidden gem most gardeners have never considered for a container, and it might be the one that changes everything about your kitchen herb game. And around the halfway mark, I'll share something about root vegetables that the seed industry has been quietly hoping you never found out. I've killed enough container tomatoes and drowned enough rosemary to know exactly which plants forgive you and which ones don't. This list comes from 3 growing seasons of trial, error, and a few very dead basil plants, so you don't have to repeat my mistakes. Every plant here was chosen because it grows in the USA, the UK, and Canada, in pots you already own or can buy for less than your weekly coffee order. Nothing on this list requires a greenhouse, a tiller, or a single raised bed. When your neighbor is still double digging their vegetable patch every April, you will already be harvesting. Plant number 1, rosemary. Rosemary got quietly dropped from a lot of easy garden herb lists over the past decade, not because it's difficult, but because in open ground in much of the UK and the colder half of Canada, it simply dies over winter, and nobody wants a herb that makes them feel like a failure. What got overlooked is that rosemary in a pot solves the exact problem that kills it in the ground. A mature rosemary plant in the ground can survive down to about -7 degrees Celsius or 20 degrees Fahrenheit, but the second the soil around its roots sits wet, for more than a day or two in winter, it rots from below. That's roughly the temperature of a typical chest freezer, and it's still not enough to save a rosemary plant sitting in waterlogged clay. The lazy gardener's benefit here is enormous. One rosemary plant, kept in a pot, can supply a household with fresh rosemary for 8 to 10 years before it needs replacing. Compare that to buying a plastic clamshell of rosemary at the supermarket every couple of weeks for around $300 to $4 each time, and the math does itself. If you're in the US, rosemary is hardy outdoors year-round in zones 8 through 10. In zones 5 through 7, grow it in a container so you can move it against a south-facing wall or onto a porch for winter, planting in late spring once nights stay above 4 degrees Celsius or 40 Fahrenheit. In the UK, it's rated H4 to H5, potted up in May, and tuck it against a sheltered, sunny wall through winter, since most UK rosemary deaths happen from wet roots, not cold air. In Canada, treat it as a tender perennial everywhere outside the mildest coastal pockets of British Columbia. Bring the pot into an unheated porch or garage once nights drop below freezing, and it will outlast almost anything else on your patio. Here's the insider part most people miss. Rosemary actually prefers slightly poor, gritty soil. Feed it like a tomato, and you get soft, floppy growth with weaker flavor. Starve it a little in a fast-draining pot, and the oils concentrate. Garden centers rarely mention this, because a bag of premium feed is an easier upsell than do less. Owning one rosemary plant for a decade, instead of buying a new sprig every fortnight, says something about the kind of gardener you're becoming. Patient, a little stubborn, and done funding the supermarket herb aisle. There's a reason rosemary earns the top spot on this list, but the next plant might be the one that surprises you the most, because it's a vegetable that nurseries push hard for garden beds, when it actually performs better behind glass on your own patio. Plant number 2, cherry tomatoes. Cherry tomatoes, specifically the compact patio or bush varieties, were largely sidelined by big box garden centers in favor of tall, sprawling vine tomatoes, because vine tomatoes need stakes, cages, ties, and pruning tools, and every one of those is a separate sale. The patio varieties need none of that, and almost nobody stocks them prominently because there's far less to sell you alongside them. A single patio cherry tomato plant in a 40-liter, or roughly 10-gallon, container can produce 200 to 300 tomatoes over a single summer. That's more cherry tomatoes than most households buy from a supermarket in an entire year From one plant, in a pot the size of a laundry basket, the lazy gardener wins in the soil itself. In the ground, tomatoes fight blight, soil-borne disease, and whatever the last 3 years of garden soil have been harboring. In a fresh pot of container compost, you start clean every single year. No crop rotation plan required. No digging out diseased soil. In the US, it grows as an annual everywhere. Start hardening off after your last frost date, generally zones 3 through 10, once night temperatures stay reliably above 10 degrees Celsius or 50 Fahrenheit. In the UK, it's treated as a half-hardy annual across all zones. Don't move pots outdoors until late May, after the risk of frost has passed, since a cold snap in early May has ruined more UK tomato harvests than blight ever has. In Canada, it's grown as an annual nationwide. In short-season provinces like Alberta and the Prairies, start seedlings indoors 6 to 8 weeks before your last frost, so the plant has fruit set by mid-summer. The insider tip here: container tomatoes actually ripen faster than ground-grown ones because dark plastic or terracotta pots heat the root zone a few degrees warmer than open soil. That warmth signals the plant to fruit sooner, which is exactly why container-grown patio tomatoes often beat traditional garden tomatoes to the table by 10 to 14 days. Pulling a warm, sun-ripened tomato off a plant on your own step, weeks before anyone with a traditional vegetable patch, is the kind of small, quiet win that changes how you see your whole garden. That early harvest feels good, but the next plant on this list is the one most people assume needs a full herb bed, and it absolutely doesn't. Plant number 3. Chives rarely get their own feature on gardening shows because they're considered too basic to be interesting television. But that reputation has buried the fact that chives are one of the few herbs that genuinely prefer a confined root space. In open ground, chives spread aggressively and get mistaken for invasive grass within 2 seasons. In a pot, that same spreading habit becomes a thick, productive clump instead of a problem you're fighting in June. A single 20 centimeters or 8-inch pot of established chives can be cut back to the base and will regrow fully within 10 to 14 days, meaning one plant can be harvested 6 to 8 times across a single growing season without ever being replaced. The lazy gardener's benefit is the regrowth itself. There's no replanting, no seed starting after the first year, and no waiting weeks for a usable harvest, the way you would with most herbs from seed. In the US, it's a true perennial in zones 3 through 9. Divide and pot up in early spring as soon as the ground is workable, even while overnight frost is still possible. In the UK, it's rated H7, meaning it shrugs off harsh UK winters outdoors in a pot without protection. In Canada, it's fully hardy from coast to coast, including the prairies and most of the Maritimes. Pots left outdoors over winter will simply go dormant and return with the first warm week of spring. Here's what most growing guides leave out. Those purple chive flowers aren't just decoration. They're edible, mildly garlicky, and chefs pay a premium for them at farmers markets, often $2 to $3 for a small punnet, and your plant produces them for free every single year with zero extra effort. There's a particular kind of confidence that comes from snipping fresh chives onto a baked potato while your neighbor drives to the store for a bunch that'll wilt in 3 days. We're only 3 plants in, and plant number 11 on this list is the one that genuinely surprised me when I tested it indoors over winter. Speaking of plants that punish you for impatience, the next one is the exact opposite, a vegetable that actually rewards being a little neglected. Plant number 4. Bush beans got pushed out of small space gardening advice for years in favor of climbing pole beans, mainly because pole beans look more dramatic on a trellis for photos and social media. But bush beans were never actually the inferior choice. They were just less photogenic, and that's a strange reason to skip a vegetable that needs no support structure at all. A single 30 centimeters or 12-inch pot can hold 4 to 5 bush bean plants, and each plant typically produces 1 to 1.5 kilograms, or about 2 to 3 pounds, of beans across a season. That's enough for a family of 4 to eat fresh beans for several weeks without buying a single packet from a shop. The lazy gardener's benefit is speed. Bush beans go from seed to first harvest in just 50 to 60 days, faster than almost anything else on this list, which means even a late start in early summer still produces a full crop. In the US, Direct sow outdoors once soil temperatures reach 16 degrees Celsius or 60 Fahrenheit. Suitable across zones 3 through 11 as a warm season annual. In the UK, it's a half-hardy annual, so directly into pots from late May once frost risk has fully passed, since cold, wet soil will rot the seed before it sprouts. In Canada, it's best direct sown after the last frost date for your region, early June across most of the prairies in Ontario, slightly earlier on the BC coast. The insider tip: bush beans actually fix nitrogen into the soil through their roots, which means the spent compost from a bean pot isn't waste. It's free fertilizer for your next container of leafy greens. Something almost nobody recycles because they don't know to look for it. Knowing your waste soil is actually next season's fertilizer is exactly the kind of quiet edge that separates someone who gardens from someone who's just decorating. That nitrogen trick sets up perfectly for the next plant because it's one of the biggest beneficiaries of recycled bean pot soil. Plant number 5. Thyme has quietly disappeared from a lot of must-have herb garden starter kits, largely because it doesn't photograph as boldly as basil or mint. It's low, slow, and unglamorous, which made it an easy plant for marketing to skip. That's a mistake, because thyme is arguably the single lowest maintenance herb that exists for a pot. A mature thyme plant needs watering as little as once every 7 to 10 days in average summer weather. Because its tiny, waxy leaves are built to survive Mediterranean drought conditions. Most herbs in pots need water every day or two. Thyme can go an entire week without complaint. The lazy gardener's benefit is forgiveness. Thyme is one of the only herbs where forgetting to water it is closer to correct care than overwatering it, which makes it the ideal plant for anyone who's killed a basil plant by drowning it with good intentions. In the US, it's hardy as a perennial in zones 5 through 9. Pot up in spring once the soil has warmed, and it will overwinter outdoors in most temperate regions. In the UK, it's rated H5 to H6, fully hardy in containers through a typical UK winter, as long as drainage is good. In Canada, it's reliable as a perennial in zones 5 and warmer, including most of southern Ontario and coastal BC. In the prairies, treat it as an annual or move the pot somewhere sheltered for winter. Here's the part most growing guides skip entirely. Thyme actually tastes better when it's slightly stressed by dry soil and full sun. Commercial herb growers know this, which is exactly why supermarket thyme often tastes flat. It's grown fast and well watered for size, not flavor, and that's the version most people think thyme is supposed to taste like. Discovering that the neglected version of a plant is the better one is the kind of small rebellion against conventional advice that this whole channel is built on. If thyme rewards a little neglect, the next plant on this list demands the complete opposite, and skipping that one detail is where most people go wrong with it. Plant number 6. Lettuce and salad greens. Lettuce and loose-leaf salad greens were pushed toward raised beds and dedicated vegetable patches for decades, mostly because seed companies sell more seed when you're told you need a long, dedicated row. But lettuce roots are shallow, which makes it one of the few vegetables that genuinely doesn't need deep garden soil at all. A container barely 15 centimeters or 6 inches deep is enough to grow a full productive crop. Cut and come again lettuce can be harvested every 2 to 3 weeks from the same plants, for up to 10 to 12 weeks total, before the plants finally bolt and stop producing. That's roughly an entire summer of free salad from a single sowing in a container the size of a window box. The lazy gardener's benefit is the harvest method itself. Snip the outer leaves, leave the center intact, and the plant keeps regrowing. No pulling, no replanting, no gaps in the soil to weed. In the US, it's a cool season crop across zones 2 through 11. Sow in early spring and again in early autumn to avoid the bitter, bolting effect of summer heat. In the UK, sow from March through to late August in succession, every 2 to 3 weeks, for a continuous harvest right through to autumn. In Canada, it's best grown in spring and again in late summer. In hot prairie summers, move pots into partial afternoon shade to delay bolting. The insider tip: lettuce in containers bolts to seed far less often than ground-grown lettuce, because pot soil drains faster and doesn't trap the heat that triggers bolting the way dense garden clay can. That's a detail seed packets rarely mention, because it quietly undercuts the case for needing a dedicated garden bed at all. Eating salad you grew in a planter box. while a neighbor's whole lettuce row has already bolted and turned bitter, is the kind of small, satisfying proof that bigger isn't always better. Lettuce is forgiving about depth, but the next plant on this list is forgiving about something far more useful. Heat, plant number 7. Oregano. Oregano has spent years stuck in the same fate as thyme, overshadowed by basil in every Italian herb garden kit sold at garden centers, despite being arguably more useful and far harder to kill. The reason it gets buried is simple. Basil sells faster because it looks lush in the pot on day one, while oregano starts scrappy and unimpressive before it becomes genuinely productive. A single oregano plant, once established, can be harvested continuously for 5 to 6 years from the same root system in a pot 25 centimeters or 10 inches across, and dried oregano sold in jars typically costs $400 to $6 for barely 2 tablespoons worth. The lazy gardener's benefit is drought tolerance that borders on neglect proof. Oregano genuinely prefers being a little underwatered, and overwatering is the only real way to kill it. In the US, it's a reliable perennial in zones 4 through 10, among the hardiest culinary herbs on this entire list. In the UK, it's rated H6 to H7, fully hardy outdoors in containers through almost any UK winter. In Canada, it's hardy as a perennial in zones 4 and warmer, covering most of southern Canada. Further north, treat it as an annual or overwinter the pot indoors on a bright windowsill. Here's the detail most people never hear. Oregano grown in slightly poorer, drier soil produces a noticeably stronger, more pungent flavor than oregano grown in rich, well-fed compost. Almost the exact opposite of what most fertilizer marketing implies you should do. Learning that less feeding makes a better herb is a small piece of forbidden knowledge that quietly pays for itself for years. Oregano thrives on being ignored, but the next plant flips that idea entirely because it actually wants the attention everyone assumes herbs need. Plant number 8. Peppers. Peppers, both chili and sweet bell varieties, were largely sold as a garden bed crop for years, mostly because nurseries assumed gardeners wanted the biggest possible plant and yield. But peppers actually fruit earlier and more reliably in containers, because pots heat up faster than open ground. That single fact got buried under decades of more space equals more peppers advice that simply isn't true for most home growers. A compact chili plant in a 5-liter, or roughly 1 gallon, pot can produce 20 to 40 peppers in a single season, depending on variety. And a single jar of good chili flakes at a shop can run $5 to $8 for less than what one plant produces in a single picking. The lazy gardener's benefit is mobility. When a cold front threatens in early autumn, a container pepper plant can simply be carried indoors or into a greenhouse to extend the harvest by weeks, something a garden bed plant can never offer. In the US, it's grown as a warm season annual across zones 2 through 11. Start seed indoors 8 weeks before your last frost date for the strongest early fruiting. In the UK, it's a half-hardy annual. Pots need to come outdoors only after late May and benefit from a sunny, sheltered spot against a south-facing wall. In Canada, it's best to start indoors 8 to 10 weeks before the last frost. In shorter season regions, choose fast-maturing varieties bred for under 70 days to fruit. The insider tip: a pepper plant that's mildly stressed for water in its final few weeks of fruiting actually produces hotter, more concentrated chilies. Commercial chili farms use this exact technique, and it's rarely mentioned in home gardening guides, because water less doesn't sell more compost or feed. Knowing how to coax more heat and flavor out of a plant, most people just water on autopilot, is a quiet kind of expertise that compounds every single season. Peppers reward a careful hand near the end of the season, and the next plant rewards exactly the opposite. Total hands-off neglect during its peak. Plant number 9. Sage quietly fell out of mainstream herb garden marketing once it stopped being trendy for tea blends, despite being one of the toughest, longest-lived herbs available to home growers. It's the kind of plant that gets one small pot on a garden center shelf, tucked behind rows of flashier annual flowers that need replacing every spring. A well-established sage plant can live and produce in the same pot for 8 to 10 years, with woody stems that thicken like a miniature shrub, far longer than the 1 to 2 years most herb kit marketing quietly assumes you'll keep replanting. The lazy gardener's benefit is its tolerance for being forgotten entirely through a busy week. Sage actually struggles more from overwatering than from drought, which makes it close to ideal for anyone who travels or simply forgets the watering can. In the US, it's a hardy perennial in zones 4 through 8, among the most reliable woody herbs for cooler climates. In the UK, it's rated H5. Pot up in spring and it will tolerate most UK winters outdoors with minimal protection. In Canada, it's hardy as a perennial in zones 4 and up, including most of southern Ontario, Quebec, and coastal BC. In colder zones, an unheated porch over winter is usually enough. Here's the part rarely mentioned. Pruning sage hard in early spring, cutting it back by nearly half, actually triggers denser, more flavorful new growth. Most people are afraid to cut a woody herb back that far, so their sage plants get leggy, sparse, and weak within just a few years. Being willing to cut a plant back harder than instinct tells you to is a small act of confidence that, over the years, builds a garden that actually gets better with age instead of worse. We're past the halfway point now, and the root vegetable coming up in a few plants is the one the seed industry has been quietly hoping you never look into too closely. Sage gets better the harder you prune it, but the next plant has a completely different reputation problem. People think it needs a garden bed it's never actually wanted. Plant number 10. Swiss chard has been marketed almost exclusively as a vegetable patch crop, partly because its bright ornamental stems made it a popular choice for show gardens. But that same compact root system makes it just as happy, if not happier, confined to a deep pot. The garden bed framing buried a vegetable that's actually one of the best suited to container growing on this entire list. A single Swiss chard plant can be harvested continuously for 4 to 6 months, from late spring right through to the first hard frost, with outer leaves regrowing within roughly 2 weeks of each cutting. The lazy gardener's benefit is its almost total resistance to bolting in heat, unlike spinach or lettuce, meaning a midsummer heat wave that ruins other leafy crops barely slows chard down at all. In the US, it's a cool season biennial grown as an annual across zones 2 through 11, so directly into a deep container, at least 25 centimeters or 10 inches deep, from early spring. In the UK, so from March through to July for a harvest extending into early winter, since chard tolerates light frost far better than most leafy greens. In Canada, it's reliable from coast to coast as an annual. In colder regions, a late summer sowing can be protected with a simple cloche to extend harvest well into autumn. The insider tip: chard left in its pot through a light frost actually sweetens, because the cold triggers the plant to convert stored starches into sugars. The same process that makes kale taste better after frost. But almost nobody applies it to chard, because the pull it before winter advice gets repeated without question. Letting a plant sit through that first frost, on purpose, while everyone else rushes to clear their beds, is a small, quiet sign you've stopped gardening on autopilot. Chard gets sweeter with cold, but the next plant on this list has the opposite reputation. People are terrified to grow it at all, for one very specific reason. Plant number 11. Mint has a reputation problem that nurseries rarely correct, because warning people off a plant they could otherwise sell is bad for business. Mint genuinely is one of the most invasive herbs you can plant directly into garden soil, where its roots spread sideways and can take over an entire bed within a single season. But that exact aggressive growth habit, which makes it dangerous in the ground, is precisely what makes it an ideal, high-yield container plant. A single mint plant in a 30 centimeters or 12-inch pot can fill the entire container with usable growth within just 6 to 8 weeks of planting, and can be cut back to almost nothing 3 to 4 times across a season and fully regrow each time. The lazy gardener's benefit is total containment. In a pot, mint spreading habit becomes a feature instead of a years-long removal project, since the roots simply hit the pot wall and circle back, rather than escaping into your lawn. In the US, it's extremely hardy across zones 3 through 9, potted up in spring, and it will return reliably year after year as long as it never touches open soil. In the UK, it's rated H7, essentially indestructible outdoors in a UK winter, container or not. In Canada, it's fully hardy from the Maritimes to the prairies. A dormant pot left outdoors over winter will simply regrow with the first mild week of spring. Here's the part garden centers seldom say out loud. If you've ever bought a mint plant and been told to just plant it in the ground, it's easy. That advice has likely created more garden regret than almost any other single piece of common gardening guidance. Knowing exactly which plants need to be contained, rather than simply trusted, is the difference between a garden you manage and one that quietly manages you. Mint's reputation is all about control, and the next plant on this list is almost the opposite story. One that most people don't even realize grows from a vegetable scrap. Plant number 12, potatoes. Grow bags. Potatoes were kept almost entirely out of small space and patio gardening content for years, largely because they were assumed to need long rows and deep-tilled soil, a misconception that grow bags have only recently started to overturn, even though container potato growing has existed for decades. The traditional dig-along trench method was simply made for better farming-style photography, not better results for a home grower. A single 40-liter grow bag can produce 3 to 5 kilograms, or roughly 7 to 11 pounds, of potatoes from just 1 or 2 seed potatoes, and a 2.5 kilograms bag of seed potatoes typically costs less than $10 for a harvest that can feed a family for weeks. The lazy gardener's benefit is the harvest method. Instead of digging through soil with a fork and risking sliced tubers, you simply tip the bag over onto a tarp, and the entire crop is right there waiting to be sorted. In the US, it's grown as an annual across zones 3 through 10. Plant seed potatoes 2 to 3 weeks before your last expected frost date for an early summer harvest. In the UK, plant from mid-March through April for earlies, ready by early summer, or May for main crop varieties harvested into autumn. In Canada, plant after the soil has warmed in spring, typically May across most provinces. Grow bags can be moved to a sheltered spot if a late frost threatens young shoots. The insider tip: hilling up extra compost around the stems as they grow, which most guides only mention for in-ground potatoes, works even better in a grow bag, because you can simply unroll the bag's sides to add height in seconds, roughly doubling your potential yield per seed potato compared to leaving the bag at its original height. Pulling a full harvest of potatoes out of a bag that sat quietly on your patio all summer, while everyone assumes potatoes need acres, is exactly the kind of overlooked win that builds real gardening confidence. Potatoes prove containers can outproduce a traditional plot, and the next plant proves the same thing, just in tree form. On a much smaller scale, plant number 13. Bay laurel is rarely featured in herb growing content at all, mostly because it's technically a small tree, and most easy herbs to grow lists are built around plants that fit a single season. Bay laurel simply doesn't fit that neat, replaceable category, so it gets quietly left off. That's a strange omission, because as a slow-growing container plant, it's one of the lowest maintenance herbs on this entire list. A single bay laurel plant, kept pruned to roughly 1 to 1.2 meters, or about 4 feet, in a large pot, can supply fresh bay leaves for 15 to 20 years or more, and a small jar of dried bay leaves at a shop typically costs $300 to $5 for under a dozen leaves. The lazy gardener's benefit is its glacial growth rate. Unlike most herbs that need regular harvesting just to stay manageable, bay laurel can go weeks or even months without attention and barely change shape at all. In the US, it's hardy outdoors year-round in zones 8 through 10. In zones 5 through 7, keep it in a container so it can be moved into an unheated garage or porch before the first hard frost. In the UK, it's rated H4, widely grown in pots against sheltered walls, and most UK gardeners successfully overwinter it outdoors in milder regions. In Canada, treat it strictly as a container plant nationwide outside the very mildest parts of coastal BC. It must come indoors before the first frost everywhere else, kept cool and on the drier side through winter. The insider tip: bay leaves taste noticeably better dried for a few weeks before use, rather than used fresh straight off the plant. Fresh bay is actually quite bitter, and most people who give up on growing it never realize the drying step was the missing piece all along. Owning a plant that will likely outlive your current kitchen, your current house, maybe even your current career, is a different kind of gardening entirely. Patient, generational, almost defiant. That patience pays off slowly with bay laurel. But the next plant on this list works on the opposite timeline. and most cold climate gardeners assume it's simply off limits to them. So there you have it, 13 vegetables and herbs that thrive in containers more than garden soil, from drought-proof rosemary and thyme, through patio tomatoes, beans, peppers, and potatoes, all the way to a hidden gem growing quietly from a kitchen scrap. Whether you're gardening in the US, the UK, or Canada, every single one of these earns its place in a pot without demanding a dedicated bed or a tilled-up lawn. No crop rotation to plan, no slug-proofing a vegetable patch, just a steady, season-long harvest year after year, while everyone else is still digging up their garden in spring. If you're the kind of gardener who'd rather grow a full harvest on a patio than fight an entire vegetable bed, subscribe. We share guides like this every single week. Drop a comment below and tell me which of these 13 you're trying first. I read every single one.